Why would I watch the halftime show or care if I don't understand what he's saying? Like, people are saying you're racist for not wanting to watch or support Bad Bunny, and I'm like, I think that's the problem. I think there's an agenda behind why he's performing, and you're a part of it. I don't understand what he's saying, so I'm not gonna listen to it. I don't care. He's not speaking my language. Why are you trying to make me feel uncomfortable on an English-speaking territory?
Bruh, if you got mad because a Puerto Rican artist performed in Spanish at the Super Bowl, you're not protecting American culture. You're telling on yourself, period. Because the same people screaming, why isn't it in English, are acting like American is a skin tone and an accent.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And the wild part is, they'll wrap it in fake concern like, think of the kids, while their own leader is on social media having a full-blown meltdown about a halftime show. Like, sir, it's Sunday night. Eat your wings and relax. But nah, they couldn't relax because Bad Bunny didn't come out preaching hate. He came out with love, unity, and a message bigger than one flag. And that's why Trump was fuming. So today we're breaking down how this whole thing exposed the real culture war and why the English-only crowd always shows up right on schedule. Bruh, you ever watch somebody tell on themselves in real time? That's what this was. Super Bowl halftime happens, Bad Bunny does his thing, and instead of normal I liked it / I didn't like it takes, you got a whole presidential level crash out online. And it's always the same playbook. Not the set list was weak, not the vocals were off, not the staging didn't hit. Nah, it's instantly, this is an affront. This doesn't represent our standards. The dancing is disgusting.
Y'all know what's going on. And so do I.
And my personal favorite, think of the children. Like, bro, since when did you become the Disney Channel? That's how you know it's not about the art. It's about the audacity of the moment. The biggest stage in American sports, and the vibe on that stage wasn't built to soothe one specific group's ego. It wasn't catering. It wasn't code switching. It was just what it was. And the crowd loved it. And that's when the meltdown makes sense. Because if you're used to being centered, you start acting like you're being attacked the moment you're not. Here's the thing they don't want to say out loud. This wasn't a music critique. This was a permission slip argument. Who's allowed to represent America on the biggest stage? Who has to translate themselves to be accepted? Who has to shrink their culture so somebody else can feel comfortable? Because if it was truly about taste, you'd hear normal takes. Not my genre. I prefer rock. I miss the old halftime shows. Cool. That's fine. That's human. But when the reaction becomes, why wasn't this in English? That's not taste. That's not a review. That's an audit. That's a gate being held shut. That's somebody saying, you can perform, but only if you perform for me. And that's what makes this whole thing so revealing. Bad Bunny didn't just perform. He forced people to reveal what they think American means. And a bunch of folks exposed that their definition is basically accent, language, and who they feel ownership over.
Lucy, stop it! Denial is a river in Egypt!
Let's talk receipts. Trump didn't just say, I didn't enjoy it. He went in, calling it terrible, calling it one of the worst ever, framing it like it's a moral problem, dragging kids into it, acting like the performance is a threat to standards and greatness. And notice the move. He's not debating melodies. He's not talking choreography like he's a dance coach. He's using words like affront, slap in the face, disgusting, and nobody understands a word. That's political language. That's culture war language. That's the language of somebody trying to recruit outrage. Like, hey, if you love America, you should be mad too. That's not leadership. That's insecurity with a Wi-Fi connection. Then you got the backup singers of the meltdown. The I legit have no idea what just happened crowd. The would any other country do this crowd. the I like my halftime shows in English from people who love America crowd.
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
And it's like, wow. Because they always frame it like some innocent preference. Oh, I just prefer English. Okay, but why does your preference sound like a rule? Why does it sound like a demand? Why does it come with the assumption that Spanish is somehow less American?
Why?
And let's keep it a buck. America has tens of millions of Spanish speakers. Puerto Rico is part of the US. Bad Bunny is not some foreign invader that snuck onto the stage. This is literally American culture happening in real time. The only reason it feels foreign to them is because they don't live in that America. So when they say English only, what they really mean is, this isn't for me, and I hate that. And that's the tell. That's the mask slipping on live TV.
Bruh, here's the part nobody wants to say out loud, so I'll say it. For a lot of these people, American isn't a passport. It's a vibe check. It's a complexion check. It's an accent check. Because think about how the outrage shows up. They don't say, I prefer rock. They say, why is this in Spanish? They don't say, that wasn't my style. They say, this doesn't represent America. Those are two totally different conversations. And that's why your separate fountains line hits emotionally. But we got to wield it smart. If you say it like, all these people are the same as segregationists, you'll lose half the room immediately. But if you say it like, this is the same instinct, separate spaces, separate rules, separate definitions of who belongs, now you cooking. Because the core is separation. We want our halftime. We want our language. We want our America. They'll swear up and down they're not racist, but the outcome is always the same. A smaller box with a few people inside it deciding who gets to be counted. And it's wild because the whole point of the Super Bowl is it's a shared event. It's one of the last things in America where everybody watches the same thing at the same time. And these folks still manage to turn it into, nah, we need a separate room. Now let's get to the funniest part. The right didn't just complain, they tried to do counter programming. Turning Point USA pops up with this all-American halftime thing like, yeah, we got the real show over here. And in theory, I'm not even mad at that. Compete, build culture. If you really won culture, your alternative show should be fire, right?
Psych!
But the way it played out, it just proved the insecurity. Because why are you building an alternative stage if you're confident the main stage belongs to you? You only do that when you know the crowd isn't following you anymore. And the optics matter. You're screaming patriotism, but the energy looks like a reunion tour nobody asked for. It's the vibe of, we used to be the default, and now we're not. That's what it felt like. Also, I'm not going to claim it flopped like I got the Nielsen ratings in my pocket. But I can say it became part of the story for a reason. It didn't steal the moment. It didn't dominate the conversation. It became the punchline next to the main event. And here's where the alpha branding gets exposed. Because the pitch was, we're tough, we're real, we're American, we're not sensitive like them. But then the actual output is complaining about language, clutching pearls, and accusing people of being unpatriotic because a song wasn't in English. Then you add the Kid Rock situation where people online accused him of lip syncing. And again, I'm not calling it fact. I'm calling it what happened in public. The internet roasted it. So now you got this contrast. Bad Bunny on the biggest stage, getting love, looking like the future, and your all-American show getting mean for looking performative.
Embarrassing.
That's not just embarrassing, that's strategic failure. Because the whole culture war depends on one thing, looking cool while you're being cruel. The moment you look uncool, the cruelty becomes obvious. And people stop pretending it's
just jokes and just patriotism. What really cooked them is Bad Bunny didn't even give them the fight they wanted. He didn't come out like, here's my speech about ICE. He didn't do the obvious Twitter bait performance. He did something more dangerous to culture war people. He made it feel joyful. He made it feel unifying. He made it feel bigger than the petty arguments. Because outrage needs a villain. It needs something you can clip and scream about. But if the performance is basically heritage, love, unity, then the only way you can stay mad is by admitting what you're actually mad at. And that's why the English only stuff comes out. That's why the "This Isn't America" stuff comes out. The moment he closes it out with "God bless America" and reframes what America means, that's when you can feel Trump fuming through the screen. Because imagine being mad at a guy saying "God bless America" just because his America includes more people than your America does. That's the whole story. Now, this is the part that really makes the whole thing click. Because if Bad Bunny ended the performance with the straight "God bless America" type sign off, that should have been the moment the patriotism police relaxed. That is the language they claim they want. But what makes them fume is what came next. The reframe. That America is bigger than just the United States. North America, South America, Central America, Latin America. It's all America. And once you say that, you expose the whole scam. Because now we're not arguing about a song anymore. We're arguing about who gets ownership of a word, who gets to claim the flag, who gets to define belonging. And I'm telling you, that's why the reaction was never going to be, "I disagree but respect." It was always going to be rage. Because if your whole ideology is, "This is ours," then the most threatening thing in the world is somebody casually saying, "Nah, it's bigger than you." Also, the flag's visual is nasty work because it hits on two levels. One, it's beautiful. Two, it forces the viewer to pick a side without anyone saying the quiet part out loud. If you're offended by the flags, what are you really offended by? The fabric or the people behind it? And if that billboard moment was there with the "love is more powerful than hate" type message, it's basically a mirror. It's saying, you can come vibe with us, or you can sit in the corner and be mad. And we all saw which option they picked. This is why your "Trump was fuming when he said God bless America" line works. Because it captures the absurdity. The man can't even enjoy the patriotic line because he knows it's connected to an America that's not just his base. That's the whole tension. So when you tell this part, don't even over-explain it. Just paint it. Paint the flags, paint the message, then show the meltdown. The audience will connect the dots themselves, and that's what makes it hit harder. Bruh, there are two kinds of people during events like this. People who watch and feel something, and people who watch like they're doing a police report. You know what I mean? Culture war actors don't know how to vibe. They can't just experience a moment. They have to evaluate it for loyalty. They have to scan it for, is this for us? They have to decide if you're allowed to have fun. That's why they always end up miserable. Because joy is chaotic. Joy is mixed. Joy is not trying to prove a point. And when your entire identity is built on control, you look at joy like a threat. You start asking, why are they cheering like that? What does this mean? Is this propaganda? And look, I'm not saying critique is illegal. Everybody can have an opinion. But there's a difference between taste and resentment. Taste says, not for me. Resentment says, this shouldn't exist. That's why the English only thing is never neutral. If you personally prefer English music, cool. But if your preference comes with a demand that the biggest stage must reflect you, that's not taste. That's entitlement. And you can literally see the pattern every time. First, they call it trash.
Then they call it immoral. Then they bring up kids. Then they try to ban it. Then they try to create an alternative. Then they claim they won.
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here.
And somehow, the whole time, they're the victims. So when people say, why is everything political? The answer is because they make it political on purpose. They have to. Their whole movement runs on outrage. If there's no outrage, there's no fuel. Which brings us to the incentives. Because none of this is accidental.
Let me put you on game. Outrage is not just an emotion for these people. It's a product. It's inventory. It's content. It's payroll. They don't get paid when everyone is calm. They get paid when everybody is furious. When your uncle is screaming at the TV. When Twitter is on fire. When people are hate watching. That's the whole machine. So when a halftime show happens and it's too joyful, too inclusive, too clean, too hard to clip into a scandal, they have to manufacture the scandal. They have to find the angle that keeps their audience activated. That's why it becomes a front. That's why it becomes kids. That's why it becomes English. Because I didn't like it doesn't move units. This is Destroying America moves units. That gets clicks. That gets donations. That gets newsletter signups. That gets you trending. And the funniest part is they'll call everybody else sensitive while they're having a crisis because they heard Spanish for 12 minutes. That's why your framing about Trump tweeting hate and division while the performance was positivity is so effective. It's not just a contrast. It's a diagnosis. It shows who needs conflict to function, who can only relate to the country through an enemy. Some people don't want unity. They want dominance. Unity feels like losing to them because it means they're not the only voice in the room. So the outrage isn't a glitch. It's the feature, which is why the hypocrisy part matters. This is where I start laughing because it's the same script every time. The left cancels everything. The left hates free speech. The left is authoritarian. Okay, cool. Now watch what happens when somebody exists in a way they don't like. They instantly want consequences. They want the NFL to change. They want artists replaced. They want rules. They want restrictions. They want the gate back. And they always hide it behind patriotism. That's the finesse. I'm not censoring you. I'm defending America. But the outcome is still control. It's still this shouldn't be allowed. You can't sit here and cry about cancel culture, then turn around and try to cancel the biggest artist on earth because he didn't sing in English. That's not principled. That's just tribal. And here's the part that makes it worse for them. They weren't even forced to watch. You can literally mute the TV, go refill your plate, go take a bathroom break. But instead, they chose to be mad. They chose to build a narrative. They chose to treat it like a national emergency, which tells me they needed this moment. They needed a target. They needed a cultural enemy. They needed to remind their audience we're under attack, even during the Super Bowl. So when you say this exposed the real culture war, that's not a dramatic headline. It's accurate. The real culture war is not about art. It's about who gets to decide what normal is and who gets to exist without translating themselves. And once you see that, you can't unsee it because the mask slipped, and it slipped on purpose. Now, I'm going to be careful here because I'm not about to act like I personally ran the polls. But what's been reported is that Gen Z is swingy as hell. They can vibe with you 1 minute and ghost you the next. And apparently, that swing has been moving away from Trump hard. Like you can't spend months talking like you won culture, then immediately pivot into English only. This is disgusting. It's an affront. And expect young people to stay locked in. Gen Z may be chaotic, but they are allergic to corny outrage. And it makes sense if you think about it. The right did pick up more young voters than usual in recent cycles, partly because people are tired, partly because they hate being talked down to, partly because the left sometimes acts like an HR department. That's real. But the minute your cool turns into we're mad at Spanish, you start looking like your grandparents' politics again.
And young people do not want to feel like they're joining a movement that's just permanently irritated at the world changing. So I'm not saying one halftime show decides elections. I'm saying moments like this, a vibe reveals. They show where the energy is headed. And when the energy is resentment and policing, you lose the future audience. Because young people don't want a country that feels like a locked door. They want a country that feels like a party where everyone's invited. Even if they don't have the perfect words for it, they can feel it. When people say America first, sometimes they mean jobs, borders, policy, whatever. You can debate that, fine. But when the mask slips in a culture moment, you see what it means emotionally. It becomes us first. Not America, us. Our language, our vibe, our comfort, our definition of normal. And that's why the performance being positive made them even angrier. Because you can't argue with joy without looking like a villain. If Bad Bunny is up there basically doing a love letter to heritage and unity, and your response is outrage, you look bad. So you have to reframe it as protecting children and protecting standards.
Bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit.
You got to dress the resentment up in a tuxedo. This is why your Trump tweeting hate while the show is positivity contrast is perfect, because it shows the split in real time. One side is offering an emotional vision of the country, bigger, mixed, united. The other side is offering a fear vision, smaller, guarded, suspicious. And I'm telling you, the country is tired. People got bills. People got stress. People want a break. When your movement can't even let people enjoy halftime without turning it into a culture war, you start feeling like a parasite, like you feed off conflict. So yeah, America first can be a slogan, but in moments like this, you find out who's using it as a policy argument and who's using it as a permission slip to treat other Americans like guests. And that's why I keep calling this a stress test, not a music debate, a stress test. Because if you can't handle Spanish at the Super Bowl, what else can't you handle? A bilingual cashier, a Puerto Rican flag, a different accent at work, a neighborhood changing, a new artist being the biggest star in the world. This is the part where people always try to dodge by saying it's not racism, it's just preference.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
Okay, but preferences don't demand laws. Preferences don't demand replacement. Preferences don't demand that the biggest stage must center you or it's an affront. The performance didn't say we're taking your country. It basically said this country is bigger than hate. And if that bothers you, then you're the one admitting what you're attached to. But here's the truth. The culture is going to keep moving whether they like it or not. The crowd already told you what time it is. And the people who can't handle that, the people who need English only and separate halftime energy just to feel safe, they're going to keep exposing themselves every time a moment like this happens. Because pluralism isn't a debate, it's reality. The only question is whether you're mature enough to live in it. So I want you to tell me in the comments, when a politician or a whole movement loses their mind over something as simple as a halftime show, do you see it as patriotism or do you see it as insecurity and control? And if you want the next video, I'm going even deeper into how these culture war moments get manufactured on purpose, who profits from the outrage, and why the mask slipping is becoming a weekly event now. You do not want to miss it. And I'll see you on the next one.
Panda out.